Hello, everybody, and welcome to the December 4th Ascension with A Course in Miracles transmission. And today we are going to be doing episode 175. All of the previous episodes are on my YouTube channel at Lina Orlando. And today we're going to continue on the series where we're focusing on lesson 76. And the title of that lesson is I Am Under No Laws But God's. In this world that we are living in right now, if we understand what's happening, meaning if we can recognize God's laws and how within God's laws we are operating, then that would be considered someone who is awake, who understands the rules, if you will, who understands the laws. I'm going to call them the rules of the game. Which, interestingly enough, I'm in my son's playroom. So I've got trains and toys and all kinds of playthings here. So this is his room where the gaming happens for him. But anyways, if we understand the laws and live by, let me say this, if we understand the laws of God's, we are aware of what's happening. If we live by the laws of God's, we are awake. Because now we recognize that we're creating our reality. And I wish I had my charts so that I could make that a little easier to understand visually. But let's just go with, we don't have visuals today, so we're just going to be okay with that. We're going to accept what is. So under God's laws, every single one of us, according to the Course in Miracles, we exist in the mind of God, meaning God is the infinite intelligence that has imagined each and every one of us, just as it has imagined the planets and the trees and the birds and the bees and the grass and everything. So in God's imagination, we have been imagined. And that's why we are made in the image imagined by God. God imagines us and we're made in that image. And that's the image of the Creator. And I've got some people who can't join for whatever reason. I have... All righty. So hopefully they can go ahead and join whenever they're able to. So when we understand that we exist in the mind of God, that we are pure imagination, this is very, very unsatisfactory to the ego. The ego thinks, no, I am real and I am created and I am exactly as God created me. Well, not even as God created me. The ego thinks I created God. I am the creator of my reality. So when we recognize that we are operating in a you can even call it a simulation. Some people use that word. I don't particularly care for the word simulation, but we are operating inside of the mind of God. Course in Miracles makes that really clear. In the beginning of my journey, I didn't like that. I didn't want to be inside the mind of somebody else. I wanted to be me, and God is out there and we're connected and, we have a good relationship, but I didn't want to be inside anybody's mind. But when you move down this path of awareness and you accept the laws of God, you begin to accept the word of God as it is given to us in the Course in Miracles by Jesus channeling it to us, then everything becomes so much more simple. However, one of the the most difficult things to accept is accepting that we have been created by God, endowed with the same inalienable rights, and that includes free will. We have the free will to do whatever it is that we want to do. We've been given 100% power by God to create the reality however we want to create it. Hey, Mike, I was just sharing that I couldn't stay in my place, so I had to move to my daughter's house. I've got some work going on over there. A plumber, my doggy was going crazy barking, so I couldn't do the class in there. Anyhow, I'm inside of my little grandson's toy room, my 3-year-old grandson. So and I only share that because I was just sharing that if we think about our reality as a game, and here I am in the game room, the toy room, the Course in Miracles begins to become much more simple. It's simpler to understand, easier to apply. The ego does not like for us to think that we're in a simulation, that this is a game. Ego doesn't like that. Ego wants to be in charge, and this is serious, and this is, this is it's a very serious thing to the ego, because the ego is all about itself and seriousness. Where our soul, on the other hand, it's all about joy and fun. Oh, right. I'm made in the image of God. God has gifted me, endowed me, lovingly made me in its image with power to create. All right, let's go have fun. And planet Earth is a place where we can incarnate. Now, when I share, when I speak about what I understand is going on, I have to say that human words fail in really truly describing the truth that I know within myself. So the soul is not going to planet Earth, it's not incarnating on planet Earth. The soul in the mind of God, knowing itself as non-physical, as pure eternal, is deciding that I am in the mind of God, that I am in the creation, and knows that in this place of being the creation, in the creation, it is just utilizing it's what God has given it, which is the power to make up anything. And in that making anything up, it makes up the idea of this world. This is what the ego has done. It's made a world based on the projections of its own understanding. And in making the world, it thinks I'm the ruler of the world. But when you move to what the soul knows that it's in the mind of God. It is safe. It's never going to go away. It's eternal. And it is just making up a game. And it's making up the game that it is on planet Earth, which God has created everything that we see. So the soul, in its humble awareness that it is made in the image of God, it is not God, but it's made in the image of God, in its humble awareness and joyful excitement to use its creative powers, knows that it is on a planet that it's going to have a temporary life, and it is just going to have an experience of multiple lives, because it is playing the game of hide and seek. It is hiding that it knows the truth of everything that it is, so that it can have the experience of being this separate human. So when we can look at it from that perspective, which again, when my little grandson is playing, he's playing with the trains one minute, and then he's playing with the cars the next, or he moves to the little kitchen, or he plays with the Legos, and he's just playing with different things. And he's not lost in thinking that he's the ruler of the world. He's just playing with what is, and he moves from one thing to the next, day after day. There's something else that catches his attention. He plays with that. No big deal. That's how our soul views our incarnation. The ego, on the other hand, gets super serious. I am not inside the mind of anything else. I am here, and I am in charge, and I know better, and I know everything that needs to be done. And it operates in that level of awareness of seriousness. Well, when we look at the world that we're in right now, as things are happening out there, specifically because in this lesson, we're learning about the laws of God, you can see how much seriousness there is. We are serious about getting better from our disease. We're so serious about electing a politician that is going to get us what we want. We're serious about defeating that one. We're serious about the war in this country or that country, we're serious about our taxes, we're serious about the education system. It's so serious. So the ego in its seriousness has taken all of this as if this is real, not recognizing it's a game. And again, words fail to describe that it is real. Our experience is real because we give it reality through our agreement that it has, whatever agreement we give it, that the playground is a fun place to go to, but the IRS, oh, that's hard. Got to do those taxes. And April 15th is just around the corner. So the ego decides through interpretation. It gives it a meaning. This is okay. This is not okay. This is fun. This is not fun. And in that, it has created all of these rules and laws and regulations. The playground has its own rules and regulations. When I go to the playground with my grandson, there's a list this long. There's all these things, all these safety rules, all these things. When I was a kid, and most of you are that I can see that are here are about my age, we went to the playground. There were no rules. You just use common sense. You just knew. If you go down the slide head first, well, you might bonk your head. And but there were no rules that you can't do this and you can't do that. And you got to wear this kind of shoes and you got to do this and you can't bring this in and you can't. Crazy. That just wasn't part of my reality growing up. But the ego continues to make things so serious that the rules, the laws, the red tape, it's just becomes suffocating to live inside the world of the ego. Look at the tax code. You just need to look at the tax code. Or if you're going to build a house, look at the building codes. Or if you're going to open up a business, look at all the hoops you got to jump through to get anything done. So the ego has taken what was supposed to be a fun experience. I'm going to incarnate and I'm going to be Lina and I'm going to have a family. It's a game. To the soul, it's a game. Because the soul is not attached to anything in this world. It's just coming to the playground to have a good time. And when it's time to leave, it's time to leave, like we did as children. When it was time for dinner, we left the playground, we went home, we went to bed, had dinner, went to bed, and the next day, another day to go to the playground. That's what incarnations are to a soul. I come in, I play, I do my thing, I have my family, I have my kids, the grandkids, the job, the house. And it spends the entire day, like my grandson spends in his playroom, making up stuff and inventing things and creating new train tracks and new Lego structures. At the end of the day, he tears them up. He goes, has dinner, goes to bed. Next morning, starts all over again. That is what God intended for us to do. To not take this seriously, to know that we're safe in the mind of God. And then because we have the power to create, to imagine what we want to do and do that and not get attached. And when it's done, it's done. And then you have the experience of transition, the death experience. So we'll say, it's like we go to sleep at night, then you wake up in the next morning and you do it all over again for the pure fun of it. So when we look at these lessons, and here we are in lesson 76, I am under no laws but God's. We are told in the very beginning, the very first paragraph, we have observed before how many senseless things have seemed to you to be salvation. To the ego, it thinks salvation, what saves it, what makes it happy, what makes it be somebody is to acquire, to become, to get, to rise up the ladder. All these things, to have a government that protects me and the medical system that heals me. It's given its power away, and all of these things saves it. This is what makes me happy. This is what makes me be okay. Senseless, totally senseless when you understand what your soul is all about, when you understand the laws of God. And because we have all been conditioned from the time that we're in our mother's womb, from the moment of conception, we are conditioned to believe that we're separate, that we're other than. Nobody raises us that happens to be in the world and lives by the ego's laws. Nobody raises us to know the truth about God. We are raised to believe things about God according to other people's beliefs about God, but not really truly to come inside as Jesus taught 2,000 years ago, to come within and get to know the kingdom of God that's within. Because when you know the kingdom of God that's within, you come to know that God is in you, because God is the intelligence that creates everything. And we're accessing that intelligence. When we listen to what, as the Course says, the Holy Spirit, we're listening to the intelligence of God that is constantly reminding us of the things we want to experience, the things that we're desiring from a place like a little child, which is why we have to become like a little child, that is pure innocence and joyful, and it's just for the experience. No harm is ever done when we listen to the desires of our God within us. When you connect with that, which all little children, as we were children, we had these ideas of what we wanted to be when we grew up, and it was fun, and it was nothing about it was serious. But little by little, as we listen to the voice of the ego, which becomes more solidified, the more that we become indoctrinated by the rules and the laws and the regulations on the outside. Our mothers, fathers, teachers, preachers, government, the media, everything outside, doctors, we're told this is the way that it is. And if you don't do it this way, you're going to be in trouble. The seriousness of the ego is so much what the Course in Miracles focus on us understanding. If you're serious, if you're in shame, if you're in guilt, if you're in blame, if you're in judgment and resentment, that's egoic seriousness. That is the result of believing what the ego is teaching. When, on the other hand, we do the work to remove those obstacles, all of these beliefs are obstacles, and we come to know, what does God really know? What does God believe about me? How did God really create me? Then we begin to understand more of the laws of God. And then God becomes like a parent that lovingly tells its child, okay, don't put your finger in the socket because you might get hurt, but I'm not going to stop you from doing it. You'll learn. If you need to learn by putting your finger in the socket, you'll learn your lesson, and that's okay. You can learn it that way. And then there are other children that I know, because I had 3 kids at home, 2 that I gave birth to, 1 that I adopted when he was a little older. So I didn't have him the first 6 years of his life, but still, we teach our kids, and one of my kids, he needed to put the finger. One of my other kids didn't need to do that. So we are the same way. Some of us have to learn our lessons the hard way. Some of us, we read these teachings and we go, okay, this makes perfect sense. I'm going to trust the laws of God. Most people don't quite do it that way. Most people have to do it the hard way. Either way, we all have to come to the place that we begin to look at the world through the lens of God's understanding, God's laws, through what Jesus says is the truth that we are attempting to embody. And when you look at the world through that lens, you begin to recognize the world that the ego has made, its seriousness, the difficulties that we're experiencing right now. It's the year 2024. We are in November 2024. We have experienced these elections. We are experiencing in the United States the transition of one government system, one party moving to the other one. Around the world, that's happening in many, many countries. It's interesting how so many countries right now are going through the exact same thing. I read something somewhere, it was like over 100 countries are going through a transition as well, whether it be at the presidential level or maybe local elections, but there's a lot of transitioning happening. And when you can understand the laws of God, then all of what's happening in the world begins to make more sense. When you can see the seriousness of things, the ego's at play. When you can see a more lighthearted way, then you can see that there is, the soul is coming through and bringing a little bit more joy, bringing a little more levity to what's taking place. So ask yourself, when you look at things, do you take them super serious? And if my person doesn't get in, if my politician doesn't win, if my school system doesn't do things the way I want them, if my church doesn't do this, are you losing your mind because things don't go your way? Then you're playing the game very seriously when it's just supposed to be a lighthearted game. But if you can be lighthearted, then you are going to be in a place of realizing that this incarnation means things come and go. It's not going to be consistent. It's going to be every generation that is there does things a certain way, and then the next generation wants to do it differently, and the next generation wants to do it differently. If we allow ourselves to be more in the ease and the flow of life, then we will have more of an experience that I'm going to call enlightened. We're going to be able to let things come and things go, knowing that nothing on this physical plane is permanent. Only the ego gets attached and makes things serious, and this is mine and not yours. And then, of course, when things come and go, because they do here, then people suffer. And all the suffering is self-imposed. All of the suffering is because we don't understand the laws of God. So again, looking at lesson 76, it starts with, we've observed before how many senseless things have seemed to you to be salvation. So that's in paragraph 1, sentence 1. Then we went down a little bit more. And in paragraph number 2, halfway through sentence 3, it tells us how simple is salvation. Salvation is very simple because if you know God's laws, you're not going to be bound by the things of the ego. But if you operate under the ego's laws, you're going to suffer because things are going to come and things are going to go. Then you move further down into paragraph number 3. Think of the freedom in the recognition that you're not bound by all the strange and twisted laws that you have set up to save you. So when you know the difference, ego serious, it's about control. And if I don't have my way, then I'm going to suffer. And God is saying, you're on a playground, have fun, be like a little child again and just have fun. Things are going to come, things are going to go. Don't be attached, enjoy them. While you have them, enjoy them. And when they're gone, they're supposed to be gone because they create an opening for something else. And if you're not aware that there is absolutely nothing in creation that is going to ever leave an empty space, because creation abhors a vacuum. There can't be an empty space. Something moves out to create space for something else. And if you don't understand that, something moves out and you think you lost something. Again, egoic insanity that causes to suffer. But what freedom comes to one who recognizes what's happening here? Because in the recognition of what is happening, there is a freedom to say, do I want to play with that? Do I want to participate in this or not? Do I want to do this or not? You realize you have the ability to choose what you get involved with and what you don't, because you understand that your perception of it creates your reality. So then last week we looked at, the week before, how the world that the ego has created relies on money, as it's called here in paragraph 3, halfway through sentence 2, green paper strips and piles of metal disc, meaning dollar bills and coins. You really think that small round pellet, meaning a pill, or some fluid pushed into your veins through a sharpened needle, meaning a shot that you get from the doctor, will ward off disease and death. So we've taken really seriously, I'm going to have to fix this. And then people get degrees. I'm the doctor and I'm the politician and I'm the school teacher and I'm the attorney and I'm the boss and I'm the preacher. And they are very serious about their positions and doing what they say that they're going to be doing to heal you, to teach you, to incarcerate you, whatever it is, or to be your attorney and defense attorney and get you out. Very serious games. On the other hand, when you know the truth of who you are, you don't need to go to those things because you're accessing the knowledge of the laws of God and you're activating that for yourself. Because if you think about it, we are all knowing beings who shrunk ourselves into a tiny mad idea of who we think we are. And in that tiny mad idea, meaning crazy idea, insane idea, we think that we don't know much. So the little baby starts off and we got to teach it things. But really the best teaching that a child could have is the ability to be in a space where they're encouraged to access their imagination, and their imagination begins to open up their memory, their remembering of who they truly are. And if we give them a little guidance, if we give them some tools, some knowledge, their mind will unwind out of the small sense of self that we instill on children, because we tell them from the time they're little, you're going to have to go over here to learn. You're going to have to go over here to get well. You're going to have to go over here to follow the rules. Instead of, which is the Montessori way of doing things, Maria Montessori recognized that children just need space to explore. And from their own imagination, from within them will come the ideas that then those teachers who are conscious on the outside just help guide them until they come to the place that they know what to do. Einstein is such a perfect example. Einstein and any inventor, any musician, any poet, what they are bringing into the world was not in the world before. The formulas, the songs, the poetry were not in the world. So they couldn't learn it from the teacher or the preacher. They couldn't get it from the outside. It had to come from the inside. Everything that elevates us comes from within. And we just have to create the space where we allow people to tap within. Healing comes from within. The knowledge of God comes from within. Yes, the outside encourages it and it helps. And it only helps now because it was the outside that guided us to forget these things. So the outside, we observe others like Jesus, show us the way that they went through to remember the truth of who they are. But when you learn the laws of God and you apply them, and that's the key word. I have been teaching from the course. I've been a teacher of these spiritual principles since 2007, teaching from the course since 2012. And I'll tell you what I observe in every single person that starts this work. There's a couple categories. Those who go in, yes, I want to learn the course. It came from Jesus. I read it once. Okay, I read it and I'm done with it. It stays at the level of yeah, they read it. They have the information in their head. Then there are those who begin to practice it and they begin to experience the shifts, the changes that remembering truth produces, because not only does it begin to cause you to feel different, but you begin to gain a confidence, a certainty that you are creating your reality. And then from that place, you experience big changes in your life, at least significant changes in your life. And then there are those who commit to 100% practicing it, who want to become teachers of God, which is one of the chapters in the Course in Miracles. One of the sections of the Course in Miracles is a manual for teachers, for those who are going to read it, understand it, and practice it. That group that practices it then knows that one of the characteristics of a teacher of God is honesty. And that group is very honest with themselves. And I watch this in the students that I work with that commit to honesty. And when they're judging, they know it's the ego. And when they're enjoying life, they know it's their soul. And if they're judging, or if they go into fear, if they go into concern or worry or resentment, they immediately know, I need to shift myself out of that. They're no longer going out there to get somebody else to change for them to be okay. So that's the really committed teacher. That's somebody who is committed to liberation. And they know everything comes from within. If you apply God's laws, you are going, well, let me just rephrase that. God's laws are in action all the time. They're working all the time. That's what maintains all of this going. It's our misuse of the law, meaning if my mind is how I create, because if I'm in the mind of God and I'm made in the image of God and God imagined me, then I need to start using my imagination to imagine what I prefer. And when I imagine what I prefer and I want a joyful life, I can't go around judging people, because judgment and joy are totally different frequencies. So when you recognize that just as God imagines you, you have to imagine your reality, but you have to also practice observing where your reality leads you. Because if you're in judgment, you're going to go down in frequency. If you're in joy, you're going to go higher in frequency. And then it's me doing it. I take me down, I take me up. Now you are utilizing God's laws appropriately. Course in Miracles is telling us that it is a course in mind training to help us understand how to use our mind and not misuse it, how to think with God and not block God's ideas for us. Because if we allow ourselves to be inspired by God, all inspiration, like the new song and the new formula or the new invention, is going to only bring joy to the world, is only going to bring things that are helpful for all of creation. So let's go into, let's see, paragraph 4 we looked at last week, which was basically that it's insanity to think that what the ego has made is in any way, shape, or form going to help us. And then it goes on to say that we create all these rituals around medicine, economics, and health to protect the body because we think that that's what's going to save us. And again, you can read these lessons and go, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then go out into the world and practice the ego laws. And that's okay. I know I had to learn it and still lived in the world. I was in the world and of it for a very long time while my mind was being trained and being unwound so that I could begin to step out of it. So I could be in it, but I wasn't of it. So paragraph number 5 says, these are not laws, but madness, what the ego has created. The body is endangered by the mind that hurts itself. To me, that is one of the most profound statements in A Course in Miracles, which wants us to understand without any exception that we have created for ourselves this insanity. Now I've got something that just popped in here. There we go. Let's get that out of there. When you understand that we are only hurt because we don't understand the power of our mind. We don't understand that our mind, just as God created us and we're in the mind of God, our mind is what creates the experience that we have of this outer world. And of course, this is where it gets trippy. This is where it's helpful to take psychedelics, because then you begin to understand that the outside is really inside of you. There is nothing out there. It looks that way. And when you fully understand that it is a projection of what you're believing inside, then when things happen to you, you recognize you wanted that experience. And you wanted that experience. And I know people say, but I didn't want child abuse, and I don't want death, and I don't want sickness, I don't want cancer. That's the ego talking, because the ego doesn't want those things, because the ego doesn't have the tools to really effectively deal with them. But the soul does. So you've got to decide, am I going to listen to my soul or am I going to listen to my ego? Soul, spirit, Holy Spirit's all one and the same to me. When you listen to your soul, those things that happen, you have projected them out there to give you the opportunity to bring out the best in you, to have the feelings that are only possible in a human experience, to feel the depths of the movement that you can go on, because it's a roller coaster when you begin to ride emotions. When you feel the high of one emotion and you go down to the depths of another emotion and you move up and down emotionally, and you learn how to ride that emotional roller coaster with the Holy Spirit, you recognize that some things are going to bring you joy. Some things are not going to be so much fun. They're going to be painful, but you're in the world of experiences, but you're not of it. You're not caught up in what the ego is attempting to do, which is to make you suffer. And people say, well, why would we even have an ego? Because we have free will. The Creator created us to create, but when we don't understand the rules of the game, when we don't understand the laws, we miscreate and create things that hurt us. So therefore, the body is endangered by the mind that hurts itself. That's why we're training our mind to stop hurting ourselves. Sentence number 3 says, the body suffers just in order that the mind will fail to see it is the victim of itself. This is one of the traps that has been set up by our ego mind. And when I say ego, to me, that is synonymous with ignorance. When we are operating in ignorance, when we're operating in ego, we don't realize what we're doing, because After all, mommy taught me that. Daddy taught me that. Grandma said that this is the way things are. Government said that that's how we do it. The teacher told me that this is how it is. Not understanding, are they coming from ego or are they coming from God's laws? Because if they're coming from ego, they're going to be low vibrational thoughts. And yes, we can believe them. We can agree with them. We can participate in them. Excuse me, out of respect to these teachers, to these people that cared for us. We agree with them, not knowing that they're incorrect. They're ignorant to the laws of God. So humanity as a collective is waking up out of and realizing we've made a lot of agreements with wonderful people, loving people who were ignorant, unaware. Ignorance is not a bad thing when you understand they either knew it or they didn't. That's why Jesus says, forgive them. They know not what they're doing. They were ignorant to the laws of God when they attempted to crucify him. Nobody would crucify a body when you know that we're not bodies. And that's why one of the course lessons that is repeated over and over many, many times is I am not a body, I am free because I am still as God created me. That's why to go to the doctor, to go outside of ourselves, to try and think that we're getting our body fixed outside of ourselves is not necessarily where healing comes from. Now, there are many amazing things that have been done. You break a bone, you go to the doctor and they said it, and that helps. But if you take the time to research, you will find, even though the numbers are very few, there are people who have healed their broken bones through their prayer. And I cannot cite the names of everybody, but if you study Dr. Dispenza, if you look at RJ Spina, there are many people that the numbers are growing who decide, you know what, I'm going to do the healing from within and instead of going on the outside. And that's because we're moving slowly but surely into a dimension where there is not going to be we don't need to go outside of ourselves because we're going to have light bodies that are not going to break because we are going to learn the laws of God and we're going to be playing by those laws, those rules for the game of ascension, of enlightenment. Sentence number 4 says, the body's suffering is a mask the mind holds up to hide what really suffers. When you understand the game, you realize that every single time your mind is focused on the body. Oh my gosh, I can't do this because my hand hurts, or this hurts, or this is whatever. The egoic mind, which is our ignorant self, cannot do anything but operate in darkness, meaning it doesn't have the light of truth to access because it's created so many blocks with so many beliefs that we have been accepting as true. And if something hits me and hurts me, then that becomes my reality. That is a distraction to mask the mind from going to the place where the suffering really happens, which is believing that I'm a body, believing that I'm separate from God, believing that I'm a human, believing that the outside is real and it's out there. So that's why it takes a while, lifetimes, and for some in this lifetime, decades, to retrain the mind and shift that thinking to come to the place where the power is, and it's in our mind. And it starts by accepting that we are the creator of our reality because we were created in the image of a creator that creates. So once you accept that without exception and you practice it, so it moves from the head to a practice, you can feel the shift when you decide if something is hurting to, instead of, oh no, that hurts so bad, oh my hand, I got to go to the doctor and get it fixed. If you sit as the creator of your reality and you go, who's judging the pain? Okay, it's my mind. My mind is judging the pain. Can I move behind that one that is judging? Can I be the observer of the judger? Can I sit and watch my mind and watch my thoughts? And I know many of my students, they can say, they tell me all the time, Lina, I was watching my egoic thoughts. It was wild. Well, when you get to the place that you can be the observer of the ego mind, then you get behind the thoughts. Once you're behind the thoughts and you observe them and you begin to change your mind about what's hurting, you will have, if you stick with it and you believe it and you trust it, but you have to have conviction though, you will begin to see that pain shifts or dissolves because you don't need to validate that your hand has power. You have gone behind where the power is, and you're validating that the hand does not have power. So then you sit behind there and you recognize, I do create my reality. If I want that pain to go away, like Jesus said, Lazarus, get up and walk, and he was dead according to the world, and he gets up and walks. That's because you know you are the creator of reality. There is zero doubt. But while we're waking up, it's a little challenging. We have moments where we're the creator of our reality, and then we have moments when the reality has more power over us. The tooth hurts and you go to the dentist. I did. Or the belly is hungry and you go to the refrigerator. I do. So I recognize I'm in the world and these things are happening. But more and more and more, as I practice being in charge of my emotions, for me, I started there. I started with, if I create my reality, at least I'm going to work with the emotions first. The physical aspect is going to have to come next. I needed to master the emotions. My emotions don't run my life anymore. If I have anger, if I have an upset, I can sit behind that and I observe it and I know where it came from. And for me, shift and lift out of that relatively easily. The body, I'm working on that. The body still has power. I have given it power. So I'm working on taking that power back. And for me, I started in simple ways. And now I'm a little bit more confident that I'm not a body, but I am still observing the wrinkles and the aging and the body is going to do what it does. So I've come to make peace that I am the soul that animates this physical vessel, but the physical vessel is going to do what it does because there's a lot of momentum of lifetimes of believing I was a body, and those thoughts may not leave in this lifetime completely, but at least I can observe them and realize that's just old thinking. That's egoic thinking. That's still ignorance on my part. So I'm making the best of enjoying this physical vessel, taking care of it while I'm here in this world as an observer of it instead of at the mercy of it. So the ego or the Course in Miracles is telling us that once you recognize that the power is in the mind, the suffering is going to end. It absolutely will end, as Jesus taught us. He was not suffering when he was on the cross. Anybody who tells you that Jesus suffered on the cross when he was crucified, hammered, had nails put in, have not heard the messages that are coming directly from Jesus through many channeled teachers saying, I did not suffer. I was not a body. There was no pain because I wasn't identified with the physical self. I was identified with the eternal self, which is why, the body did what it did and they put it in the grave. And then the essence of who Jesus is, the spirit, the soul, came out and started walking among the people. And only those who could really experience the truth of Jesus could have that encounter with him. The rest would know he was there, because you have to have a high vibrational perspective of life, know God's laws better to be able to see that which is non-physical. So then sentence 5 says, it would not understand it. It is its own enemy, meaning the mind that is masking the truth, that it attacks itself and wants to die. It is from this, your laws, quote unquote, your laws would save the body. It is for this you think you are a body. We think we are a body here to save ourselves or to heal our bodies, to take care of ourselves, to do all of the things that will make us feel better, not knowing that what we are, the essence of who we are, doesn't need to feel better. It is the good feeling of God itself already. It cannot improve itself. So when we are going through an awakening process, what is happening is that we're having access. Think of a really dark room. Think of the ego as a very dark room. And think of the soul's awakening as lifting the shades to the windows that have been covered, that that have made the room dark, lifting up the shades a little bit, and you let a little light in, so you start thinking more truth. And then you lift the shade up a little bit. Some of us had the old blinds, you had to turn them, and the levers would like open up and let a little light in at first, and then more and more and more light. And if you open up all the windows, you got even more light. If you open up the door, you got more light. If you took the roof off, you would have a ton of light. So awakening is necessary for those who have gone asleep. Asleep is that they haven't darkened themselves. They have put all these layers of beliefs that are not true because they're ignorant of truth. They're egoically made, laws and rules and regulations. And we are slowly waking up. We're letting a little light in. And every time you let the light come in, which is the imagination that a child has, you begin to allow yourself to open up to God. What would you have me do? What would you have me know? And then you begin to access a part of you that has always been there, that holds the truth, that you cannot access anywhere else other than within yourself. And when you begin to trust that guidance that comes from within, you lighten up, you become happier, you become more creative, because you're tapping into God's laws. They're working through you. You become, as some of the sages have told us, you become instruments, you become vessels for the expression of that truth to flow through you and as you. So when you understand the laws of God's at a mental level, and then you practice them, you live them, you make them your reality, then you will be under no laws but God's. But this is where we have to make the decision. Do you know the laws of God's and you still experience pain and suffering? Then you're not practicing those laws as if they're your reality. So this is where honesty kicks in. If you're not trusting these laws to work for you, then you won't be working those laws, and you won't have the effect of them, because you create your reality based on what you believe. And if you believe you're a body and you're going to die and you're going to suffer, you're going to get cancer because mommy had it, then that's the experience that you are saying, I'm okay with that experience. But if you decide, I am only okay with what God wants for me, and God created me to be happy, God created me to be free and sovereign, God created me to heal myself, then you sit with, where am I not accessing that? What thoughts do I have that block that as my reality? Then all the work is inside. And you're basically undoing everything that you were taught was true by those who operated in the ignorance of God's laws. And this is not an easy thing to do. It takes time, but it's very simple. Why? Because we're told over and over and over again, there's got to be probably at least 100 places in the Course in Miracles where we're told salvation is simple. And if you want to save yourself, spare yourself from the insanity of the ego, you need to understand and practice God's laws. And when you're not practicing it, be honest that you chose to let the ego influence you in that moment. You forgive yourself for doing that, and you move on. You try it again. You carry on. These laws are very, very simple. Again, not easy to shift your mind until you become more practiced. But that's what we signed up for. We signed up to incarnate, forget who we are, and then go through the process of remembering. It's a game. It's fun if you understand the laws. All right. Does anybody have any comments or questions or suggestions, or how are you applying these laws in your lives that have given you evidence that you are under no laws but God's? I would love to hear from you. So just unmute yourself and share if you feel like doing that. Hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving and you had a good time with the family as we prepare for the next holidays here. No comments?
Well, no, there. I'm just keep clicking the wrong button. Um, yeah, I just love how all Jesus' channel works. Just to me, it came together. And in chronological order, I did the Course in Miracles for, I mean, daily, still do it daily, but really focused for 10 years. And then the way of mastery came into my life. And whereas I didn't look at Course in Miracles as lighthearted as you have, as you've interpreted it, the way of mastery made me go back and look at it and see it's lighthearted and all the messages that are lighthearted. And then of course the love came. And that just blended the heart with what my mind had been retrained to know. And then this last section of books, Choose Only Love.
Oh, now
Um,
who wrote those?
uh,
I I've heard of them, but I can't remember.
yeah, I told you, Blacksley, Sebastian
Oh,
Blacksley.
Sebastian. Yes, I met
Yeah,
him. Lovely, lovely guy.
yeah, I've
From
said it a
Argentina.
couple of
Yeah.
them, but yeah, that just tenderizes everything and probably gives it a more Christian perspective than say the other three were. And then listening to Aaron Michelle,
Yeah.
almost every message she channels is lighten up.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to go through life that way. And I guess the last probably 8 or 10 years of my career, I'd go through my ritualistic talk with God on my way to work, remembering the characteristics of God's teachers and other things. And I would walk in and it just an entirely different perspective than walking in and thinking, oh, I got to get this done, got to get that done. And so the principles just work everywhere, and it really makes life more enjoyable.
It does. It really does. Thank you for sharing that because that's the way it works. Yeah, Sebastian's work is like you said. I like how you use the word tenderizes everything, because he does bring such a. I mean, he's channeling, and he was a student of Course of Miracles, Course of Love, and that helped open up more of his channeling skills that he already had, and all of us have the ability to receive that. I mean, for me, the work that came to me was the power of awareness. And that's what's allowed me to be able to look at the Course in Miracles when it came 5, 6 years after the power of awareness. And I could see it so lightheartedly because I was given the power of awareness first. And each subsequent reading that I've done is just incredible. Have you um have you read any of the work by Paul Selig?
What were some of his works? The name rings a bell, but
So he started channeling quite a while back, but started offering, books were being channeled through him maybe 10 years ago. And he's wrote a book called I Am the Word, and I can't remember the titles of his channeled material, but the channeled material here, I'm going to go really quickly, the gift of technology, um, and pull up the titles of his work. And if so, I Am the Word, A World Made New, the Book of Love and Creation, the Resurrection, the Book of Innocence, the Book of Mastery, the Book of Knowing and Worth, the Book of Truth, the Book of Freedom. So he's had all of these different specific topics that are channeled through him. I don't particularly enjoy listening to him channel because he always says it one time and then repeats it. So if, like, when he's channeling, he says, I am the Word, I am the Word, I am God here made form, I am God here made form. So it's doubled all the time. But I do enjoy I think I've read 2 books, and It's the same thing though as Course in Miracles. It's the same thing as the Way of Mastery. It's the same thing that Sebastian is putting out there. We are love. We are in a dream that we chose to enter. And the only way out of the dream is to remember that we're the creator of it. And the only way to remember that we created it is by loving everything that is there because you put it there. So it's just another way of saying the same thing until we find the exact teachings, the exact teacher, the exact combination that you said allows us to be tenderized out of this density that we have made our reality. But I highly recommend those books. They're wonderful. Did you read The Untethered Soul?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I've got a Wednesday night study group, and we're going to start reading next week, The Untethered Soul together. That's been around a long time. When I was in Atlanta, I did a lot of workshops on that book, and would do A Course in Miracles and The Untethered Soul so that people could see how Course in Miracles was explaining what was happening in Untethered Soul. So anyways, if you want to be part of that group, we meet Wednesday evenings, and I think it's 6 to 8 Atlanta time, because it's 4 to 6 my time here in the mountains. And there's no cost for that. It's just strictly we get together. So if you want to order that book and join us in a group, it's about 11 or so of us that will be reading it. And it's not, I don't lead it as in, it's not a class. It's everybody shares their experience. And it's just a lovely, lovely process. We did that with a book recently, one of the Cryon books called The Journey Home. It was just such a fun experience, like-minded people, curious and sharing their own perspective. And we all become more tenderized by receiving everybody else's experience, interpretation, and practical application and experience of it. So if you want, I can add you to that group. I call it the Happy Dream Creators.
Yes, please, or send me the link or something.
Yeah, I'll add you to it. It's in Facebook, and then I'll text you what we're going to be doing tonight, because we meet on Wednesday nights. What we're going to be doing tonight, we're going to watch a video that another one of our community, our sisters brought to our attention. We're going to watch a video tonight, and then we start The Untethered Soul tomorrow. I'll text you all that info.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just fun. It's fun when masters get together. We're all teachers of God, helping each other remember the truth. So it's a lot of fun being in that group. All right, family and friends, thank you so much for being here. And we conclude this episode 175 of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And as always, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with everybody and have these conversations. Love you all so much.
You too.
See you next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.